Welcome to another Power BI Monthly Digest. My name is Matthew Peterson, and I'm a trainer at Pragmatic Works up here in Northeast Florida. So this is the last digest video that we will be providing for the year of 2020, but we are ready for sure to do another one in January 2021 because I'm just ready for a new year to be upon us. So what are we going to be doing today with this December one? Well, there's a lot of updates. Most of them I'll be able to show you within the Power BI desktop program. Others, like some of the embed features and such, I'll just be mentioning so that if you want to do any extra research on that, feel free to look at the Microsoft documentation. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is actually this new way to connect to our data. Now, in 2018, I think it was around November or so, the Power BI update allowed us to connect to multiple direct query sources, which was fantastic, as well as have imported data, thus the composite model. Well, one of the things that was lacking was the ability to do this with analysis services. And today, now that it is in preview mode, so we're going to turn on the preview feature in just a second, that means you're now going to be able to connect to something like a Power BI data set, as well as another direct query, as well as your local data or your imported data. So now we're going to have this really robust composite model, which is going to allow for more flexibility in connecting to the data wherever it might live within your organization. Let's take a look and see how we can actually do this. So in our Power BI desktop, the first thing you're going to need to do, and we'll do this for, let's do it all at the one point. We're going to turn on the preview features for this month. So if you go to your File ribbon, Options and Settings, Options, we're going to go over to the preview features, and there's 3 preview features that we're going to be talking about today. And so the ones that we will be working with that we see here is we're going to talk about our information protection. We're going to be doing the direct query for Power BI data sets and analysis services, as well as our small multiples. Those are the 3 preview features that were added to the Power BI desktop version for December. So let's get out of there now that we got our preview features turned on, and let's see how this actually works. So I have some imported data, just a table with some data about Australia. And what I want to do now is go get data from my Power BI data set that has been shared with me out on the service. So I come over to Power BI data sets. It's going to connect to see which ones I'm allowed to use. And so I'm just going to pull this random one that I was working on the other day. When I click on create, at this point in the past, what would happen is it would not allow you to connect to it. It says you can't do that. However, with this new feature, it says, okay, if you're going to do this, a second data source, because we're connecting differently, now we're going to do it with a direct query connection and not have it imported here. The information from one data source might be including queries that are sent to other data sources. Well, that's going to be okay. That's what we want to happen here. So it says, do you want to build this model? Oh yeah, let's build the model because this is something that we were never able to do. And notice how it's saying it's a direct query connection. It's not a live connection at this point like it normally is when you do the Power BI data set to start off with. And just to prove that, if we go to our modeling view, and just for those of you who didn't see the November update last month, in the modeling view, if you turn on your new model view, it's got some really great features. So I'm going to do the upgrade now to it. And what we see is just some different iconography, some different colors, etc. And anything in blue that we have means it's in a direct query mode. And the other way to tell that is if I hover over the icon, it tells me that this is direct query, tells me the server that is coming from, etc. And then if I come over to my Australia table, if we take a look, we can see that this storage mode is in import. So now we are actually seeing that being done. We can have our direct query with a Power BI data set, which was never before supported, as well as imported data. And in order to do this again, this is going to be any for analysis services, as well as your Power BI data sets. So now let's go into the next thing that we have. The next preview feature we're going to talk about are the small multiples. And what small multiples is going to do is really neat. It's going to be able to take a visual and it's going to break it up based on a certain dimension. So you're actually going to basically see copies of that visual, but it's going to be sliced down on a certain field. You might be saying, well, Matt, can't I just do that with the slicer? Like if I hit a field like for Australia, for example, I see all my visuals filter down to Australia. And yeah, you can. But sometimes you might want to see that visual filtered down by a certain category and see the separate visuals all at once and not just focus in on only one piece. So let's see how this could be used and how you might want to use it for some of your reports. So we're going to go into a new report here. I'm going to get rid of this one so we don't slow down any of our processing speed in the back. And I have another report And we're going to go to my small multiples page. And right now, this is just very simple. This visual, I'm looking at the different countries and I'm looking at their sales. But now you have a new field in your visualizations pane. This says small multiples, add data fields here. This is saying, how do you want to break this visual up by? So for example, on this one, let's say we want to break this down by year. So I'm just going to drag in my calendar year into my small multiples field. And notice what has now happened. Now I am breaking this down based on the 4 years that I currently have. So 2005, 6, 7, and 8. So unlike a slicer, if I would have selected 2005, I would only be looking at 2005. But now I can actually start comparing them across. And you have control over the sort as well. It's going to default sort, but if you come to your ellipses, now you actually have a sort on your small multiples. So currently it's being sorted on small multiples ascending, but if I wanted to go descending, I could click on descending here and we would see 2008 first. And it's going to go left to right and then up to down. That's how the sorting is going to work here. Also take a notice that your y-axis is just listed once and the visual is basically stacked on top of it. So you're saving a lot of real estate here. And the same thing for your x-axis, my fault. And I used to be an algebra teacher. I should not have made that mistake. Your x-axis is at the bottom and it is just basically stacked on top. And then the same thing with the y-axis. So they do a really good job of saving you space. Now, what formatting options can we do with this? Well, if we have our visual selected and we go to the format section, we now have some different small multiple things that we can do. So the small multiple title. This is where you can actually change the title that you're going to see. You can change the text size, font color, the position if you want it on the top, or let's say we wanted it down at the bottom. So now we put it at the bottom. Let's move it back to the top. So we have different things that we can do in terms of the positions of it. So apart from the title itself, the other thing that you are allowed to do is come down to your grid layout. So in your grid layout, it's always going to be set for a 2x2. Which means on the 2x2, you're going to get 2 rows as well as 2 columns. And then any multiples that wouldn't fit on that grid, you would actually have your scroll bar on the right here, so where you could scroll down to see the rest of your visuals. But you can change the rows and you can change the columns. So if we changed it to 1 row, notice now it's 1x2, and now I have my scroll bar here. So you have a lot of flexibility with this new visual. I think it's going to be great in order of terms of breaking out those visuals and not just using a slicer, but now actually seeing them all compared side by side. So I'm already thinking of some great ways. I'm probably going to make a separate page where I would put all these small multiple visuals on there. So the other thing now that we have as a preview feature is your data protection in terms of data protection labels and sensitivity labels. Now, this feature was added earlier this summer, and you could add these sensitivity labels in the Power BI service. But as of today, now you can actually do it within the Power BI desktop as well. So as your building report, before you even publish it, you can put that sensitivity label on there. Now, those sensitivity labels are going to be set up by someone with higher admin privileges, and it's going to be done in Office 365 or in Azure. And then if the capability has been turned on in your tenant settings, then you, as you are signed in, if you are given those capability and rights in your home ribbon, and I don't have those rights here at my company, I would at the far right over here, and let me go back to sharing, in my home ribbon over here at the right section, you will see a little switch toggle over here to actually add those labels in. Now, again, you could do that in the Power BI service, but now they're saying, hey, if you want to do it now in the desktop before you publish, you can actually do that. And as you do that and you publish this out to the service, let's say someone wants to analyze the data in Excel, well, those sensitivity labels get published with them as well. So they are inherited by anyone who shares the file or tries to download any of the extra data. So that's a cool new feature. I haven't used it yet, but that's where you would go to do that. Now, apart from that, there's been some other improvements within the Power BI processing performance. The switch function, they have made it better and quicker and faster. So as you're making those switch statements, if you might have used nested if statements in the past and then came upon the switch statement, which is just so much easier to code, and they've made improvements to make sure that the processing speed of it and the results of your query come back at a faster rate. So that is one of the other improvements that have been done in the background. Apart from that, one of the other little small improvements is the rectangle select. And we've talked about that. I feel like almost every month there's been an improvement to it, or they've added it to a new visual. And in terms of the data rectangle, the new improvement this month is now, and I don't have one right here, but you can actually select to up to 3,500 points. And for those of you who have never seen the data rectangle select option, let me just show you how that works. So in the past, before data rectangle select was made available, if I had this data here and I wanted to start analyzing, if I click on a certain data point, we see that all of our visuals are now filtered down. And then if I wanted another one, I could do a control click, etc., and everything is great. But if I want to grab a whole bunch at one time, what they've added is the rectangle select. So if I hold down my control key and now I highlight all of these, now I see what we have. So instead of doing a whole bunch of these control clicks, we now can do this rectangle select. And this is pretty much available for almost all the visuals at this point, but the update they made this month is that you now can do it with 3,500 separate points. Apart from that, the next thing that they have made an update to in the Power BI desktop is if we go to just any random page, we know at this point you are allowed to set up your mobile view. You want to really make sure that's personalized when you publish this report out for people that are going to consume it. In order to set up your mobile view, you can do it in the service or you can do it here in the desktop. So if I go to View, Mobile Layout, what has been added this month is the ability to actually see your selection pane. This was not something that you could see in previous editions. So when I pull out my selection pane here, this is showing me what is currently on my mobile layout. And now that we have that, we can actually change the layer order. So this is great. Like if you want your visuals to kind of overlap one another, you can change the front, back, so to speak, of the order. So let's take a look here. So currently I have a tree map visual here along with this combo chart. And I have the sales amount by English education. And so it's right here. And if you go, you know what, I'd rather just that calendar year to show up and I'm trying to save space, I'm going to take my tree map visual, overlay it the calendar year here at the bottom. And now when I come to the layer order, I'm just going to switch the layer order. And so now I've actually saved a little bit of space on this. So you do have that capability at this point. The other thing that you will see is you have your eye icon. So that's letting you know if it's showing up in the report or not. You cannot change that in the mobile view. So what that means is whatever you have set up in the report view, the web-based view, if you have it being visible there, it automatically has to be visible in the mobile view. You can't have one or the other. So that has been the update that you can do in order to make your mobile view just a little bit better there. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the automatic page refresh. This was an update earlier this year that you could use on your direct query sources where your visuals would automatically refresh at a certain time limit. Because when you're in direct query, your visuals are, the good thing about direct query is you always have the freshest, livest data. You never import the data in, you're always just connected to it. But every time you hit a visual, it sends out that query and brings back the results. However, sometimes you would be on a report and you want your visuals to actually just refresh on their own without you actually having to go and click them or click refresh now. And so they've added that, they added that for direct query earlier this year, but now they're adding it to analysis services as well. So let me show you where you go to set that up, and we'll talk about some of the limitations behind that. So where you go to get that set up, and we're going to come back to our view, and we're going to go back to our regular view here, the web view. And we'll get rid of our selection pane here, and we'll come zoom in. So you want to be at the page level in order to do this. So you're going to be at the page level and you're going to go to your format section. And once you're at the format section, and again, it's the exact same. So if you've done this with direct query before, it's the same thing now here with analysis services. But what you come over to is you come over to page refresh, and we're going to turn this on. And then you're going to do auto page refresh. And 30 minutes is the lowest that you can use. So if you want to try to do like every minute or 15 minutes, it does not work that way for analysis services. 30 minutes is the smallest increment that you are allowed to set up, as well as some other considerations with it. So it only works for Azure analysis services and SQL Server analysis services. Apart from that, once you set it up in the desktop and you load it to the service, that is also great, but you do have to put in your credentials for your login credentials for that to actually still occur. As well as the change detection that we normally have or that we've had with direct query. And let me come back in here. We come to show details here. When we go to change detection, and that we can have for direct query. Change detection, if you have an analysis service connection here, it does not work. So it's only the auto page refresh. The smallest time limit is 30 minutes. And this does have to be set up if you're in a premium space. If your admin has disabled the APR, the automatic page refresh, you will not be able to turn this on within the service itself. So that is the one update. So two big updates to analysis services there. One, we can connect to it in terms of having that composite model that we did with our Power BI data sets, as well as this auto page refresh. The next thing that we're going to talk about is just the new connector, Dataverse, which used to be called CDS. So in my Power Apps people, you probably are very familiar with it, but it's gone over a new name change and it's called Dataverse. And so they've updated that connection here within the Power BI desktop, as well as you can connect to it using a direct query connection. So let me show you where you do that at. And it's pretty simple. It's where you go to always get your data. You go to your home ribbon, you're going to go to get data. It's currently not one of our common data sources, which is okay. So we're going to come over to more. And then from here, it's going to be under your Power Platform categories. If you want to find it very quickly, we're going to go into the Power Platform category. And here it is, Dataverse. And then that common data service, that was the old one. That's what it used to be called, but now it is called the Dataverse. And then you would just click on it and then put in the environment of where your Dataverse is, because Dataverses exist in individual environments. Connect to it, and you're off to the races and good to go. So those are all the major changes within the Power BI desktop program for December. However, they have done some other things within the service as well as with the embedded reports. So let's go take a look at what you might see a little bit different if you haven't logged into the service lately. So when you log into the Power BI service, one of the things that they have now changed is they have changed this little list view here. So they've made a list view with all of your recent shared with me in any of your apps. So it's just a little bit of a different navigation experience is what we're seeing here. So if we zoom out, again, you can still get to everything that you want to the normal way. Also, some things that I noticed as an update just yesterday while I was teaching is you have this new button at the top to go straight to creating your new report, as well as we have the create button over here in our navigation pane. So that is just a new thing that I realized the other day while I was teaching that I didn't see the week prior. Apart from that, the other new thing that you can do if you have the rights to do it and you're an admin and you have admin rights, whenever we publish out a report, you can now actually put a message for the people within your organization or within certain security groups within your organization that gives them some kind of, not necessarily a warning, but just a message that says, hey, you're publishing this report. Here's some things to make sure you do that are just the standard sharing practices that we use within our company. So let me show you where you set that up if you have those rights. So where you're going to go is you're going to come up to your settings icon in the Power BI service, and you're going to go into the admin portal. So again, you would need to have rights to actually view this in the admin portal, and it's going to be located under your tenant settings. So under the tenant settings, and then it's right here under help and support settings. It's the show a custom message before publishing your reports. And so if we come over here, and it's currently disabled. So we're going to enable it. And I'm not going to actually do this for my company. I don't want to make any uh-oh, so to speak. But you would just put in a message here that you want your end user to see when they hit that publish button on the Power BI desktop. And again, you could go to the entire organization, or if you wanted to put in specific security groups, that is something that you can do as well. And so now anytime that we go and we try to publish a report, that we would see this message, whatever you type in here, show up under it. and it can support up to 5,000 characters. So that is the limit that you can actually have when you do the custom message. So apart from that, some other features that they have added in this with this new release here is some extra capabilities in the mobile platforms. So if you're someone who's been consuming your mobile reports and dashboards on an Android phone, now it supports dark mode. So dark mode is now the theme that we have that is now supported on the Android phone, as well as our anomaly detection. So the anomaly detection came out last month in the Power BI desktop, but it wasn't supported for the mobile view yet, just because there's a lot that goes into it. And if you're wondering about anomaly detection, feel free to go check out the November 2020 release, and we do a little demonstration on the anomaly detection and how that actually works. So that's pretty much everything on the mobile side, the service side. But the last thing that got quite a few updates is those people who like to embed their reports in other locations. And when you embed the reports, there was some functionality that just wasn't available to you at that point. But with this month, they've tried to make sure that some of those features that people were wanting, that they could easily do within Power BI service at powerbi.com, they wanted to make sure those features were able to be accessed outside if you embed your report on a separate website. So the ones that you can now do, and you'll see a difference for those of you who use the embedded reports, is you can now put in your own personal bookmarks. So personal bookmarks is now supported, as well as persistent filters are supported. And what that persistent filters allows you to do is after you make these filter changes, and you come back to your report later down the road, maybe in a day or two, those filter changes will still be there. Prior to this, you always had to go back in and make those filter changes. Now, in the Power BI service, that is on, unless someone has turned it off by default in either the file settings or before they publish the report in the desktop program, you can turn off that feature to where you don't want persistent filters to be there. And what that means is if you turn that off, let's say I go into report, I filter it down just to see Florida data. And then I leave out, I come back tomorrow morning, log back into the service, I access my report. Well, persistent filters are on. I still see that current view I left off on. If it's turned off, then there's no filters when I open the report. It automatically resets everything when you start. So those are pretty much all the, actually, you know what? There's one more. The Q&A embedded experience now mimics what the Q&A experience is on the Power BI desktop program, as well as in the service. So prior to this month, the Q&A experience was not like that. So they have updated it. So now it mirrors what you are used to seeing. And to see more information, resources about how to enable those embed features and the codes that you need to use, check out the Microsoft documentation. We just don't have enough time to get into that for this video. So that is pretty much the brunt of it. There were a few other connector updates, some connector updates like to SurveyMonkey, to Cognite as well. But that pretty much is the big rundown of December. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope some of these features you're going to like and now you know how to use and you're able to digest this information as quickly as possible. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, and let us know what your favorite feature was of this month. We hope to see you soon. Hope you have a wonderful end of 2020, and we can't wait to see you in 2021.